You wake in the morning, and for a moment, the world is still. Before your mind fills with lists, notifications, and the noise of other people's demands, there's a silence, a space where you remember you are more than your schedule. You are more than your titles. You are a human being, capable of shaping the way you walk through this life. Living like a Stoic doesn't mean becoming cold or shutting yourself off from the world. It means discovering a quiet strength you can carry anywhere, one that no one can take from you. Marcus Aurelius wrote that your mind can remain unconquered if you choose it. I've found that to be true because when you learn to guard your thoughts, you begin to guard your peace. In a world that shouts for your attention, the Stoic way is like finding a deep, clear lake in the middle of a storm. You may still feel the wind, the rain, the uncertainty, but deep down, the waters remain calm. That calm is not given to you. You must cultivate it, and once you do, it becomes your shelter. In any season of life, as you listen to this, I want you to think about the strength you've already shown, the storms you've already walked through, the moments you thought would break you, but didn't. You are still here. That is proof enough. So today, I invite you to walk with me, not as a distant philosopher, but as someone who has wrestled with the same fears, doubts, and setbacks you have. Let's explore what it truly means to live like a Stoic and why this ancient path might just be the modern answer you've been searching for. Chapter 1. Guard the gates of your attention. Where focus goes, life follows. You live in a time when attention is currency. Everyone, every platform, every headline is bidding for your mind. If you let your attention scatter, so will your life. If you learn to guard it, you begin to steer the course of your own days, your own choices, your own inner state. The Stoics knew this long before screens or algorithms existed. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." It's not about being rude or dismissing others. It's about knowing what is worth letting into your mind and what is not. I think about this often. Every day I ask myself, what is shaping me today? Is it the quiet reading of something timeless? Is it the stillness I allow in the morning before the world starts pulling me apart? Or is it the noise I didn't have the strength to turn away from? Picture your mind as a walled garden. Inside, grow your values, your focus, your peace. Outside, there are weeds, some harmless, some invasive. If you never close the gate, everything rushes in, and before long, you forget what you were trying to grow in the first place. Guarding the gates doesn't mean you never look outside them. It means you choose. You decide what enters. You decide who enters. Think about it. How much of your worry is born from things you cannot influence? How much of your anger is borrowed from the outrage of others? How much of your restlessness is simply the echo of a restless world? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. When I first read that, it felt like a deep breath after years of holding one in. It was permission to step back, to say no without guilt, to not give my time to people or problems that refuse to give meaning in return. Guarding your attention is not an act of selfishness, it's an act of service to yourself and to those you love. Because when you spend your mental energy on what matters most, you have more of yourself to give when it counts. Let me give you an example from my own life. There was a season when I thought I had to stay informed about everything. Every headline, every debate, every scandal, it left me drained, distracted, and strangely powerless. I wasn't taking action. I was just consuming anxiety, secondhand. Then I tried something radical. I reduced my input channels to the bare essentials. 1 or 2 trusted sources, a set time to check them, and the rest of my day, I focused on my craft, my relationships, my inner discipline. It was like clearing fog from a valley. Suddenly, I could see what mattered again. Guarding the gates of your attention means practicing mental minimalism. It's about removing the mental junk food so your mind can thrive on what nourishes it. That could mean setting a clear boundary on when you check your phone, choosing books over endless scrolling, starting your day without opening your inbox, asking yourself before you consume something, will this strengthen me or scatter me? It's also about the people you allow into your mental space. Some bring warmth, truth, clarity. Others bring chaos, manipulation, or endless drama. And it is your responsibility, not theirs, to decide who gets your time and how much. Nature offers the perfect metaphor here. A river stays clear when it flows steadily from a pure source. But when it's flooded with runoff from every direction, it turns murky. Your mind is the same. Protect its source. Control its flow. This doesn't mean living in isolation. It means living with intention. It means saying, I will choose what to give my attention to, and I will choose what to turn away from. And here's the thing. The world won't make it easy. It will always try to make you feel urgent about things that aren't urgent. It will tell you you'll miss out if you don't see everything, hear everything, react to everything. But the truth, you will miss out more by letting the best of you be consumed by the worst of what's out there. When you guard your attention, you start to notice subtle changes. The day feels slower, but richer. The noise fades, and meaning comes forward. You stop being dragged from one emotion to another, and instead, you begin to live from the inside out. Here's a question worth asking yourself right now. If your life was shaped only by the things you gave attention to in the past week, would you be proud of where it's headed? If the answer is no, that's not a reason to feel shame. It's an invitation to change. Start small, maybe tomorrow morning. You keep your phone on the other side of the room until you've had your first cup of coffee in silence. Maybe you choose one meaningful thing to read before you hear anyone else's voice. Maybe you walk outside for 10 minutes without headphones, just listening to the world as it is. You'll feel resistance at first. You might feel like you're missing something, but soon you'll see you're not missing anything worth keeping. Guard the gates of your attention, because where focus goes, life follows. Spend your focus on what is worthy, and your life will grow in that direction. Let it be stolen, and you will drift without ever knowing why. The Stoics didn't just guard their thoughts to avoid distraction, they did it to live in alignment with their highest values, to make sure that when their brief time on earth was over, they could say, I lived with purpose. I did not give my mind away cheaply. So as you move through the rest of today, imagine those gates standing tall, not locked out of fear, but open by choice, to only what makes you stronger. That is how you protect your mind. That is how you live like a Stoic. Chapter 2. Welcome simplicity as a teacher. Choosing less to gain more. You look around, and everywhere, there's a pull toward more possessions, more commitments, more noise. It's as if the world runs on the idea that if only you had one more thing, you'd be complete. But deep down, you know, it's not true. The Stoics understood that simplicity is not about living with nothing. It's about living without what weighs you down. Seneca once wrote, It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. That thought still cuts through the modern rush like a clear morning breeze. When you welcome simplicity, you aren't just decluttering a room. You're decluttering your mind. You're giving yourself space to breathe, to think, to feel what truly matters. I've seen this in my own life. There was a time when I said yes to almost everything. Yes to social events I didn't want to attend. Yes to buying things I didn't need. Yes to adding just one more project to my already overloaded plate. And do you know what happened? My time became fractured, my energy thin, my presence scattered. Then, almost by accident, I began saying no, not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of care. No to things that didn't align with my values. No to people who only drained my energy. No to opportunities that weren't truly mine to take. At first, it felt strange, almost wrong. But slowly, I started to notice something. My mind became quieter, my body felt lighter, and my days had room for the things that actually mattered. Think of your life like a backpack you carry everywhere. Every commitment, every possession, every obligation is a stone inside. Some stones are precious. They represent love, purpose, growth. Others are just weight. If you never stop to open the bag, you'll end up carrying far more than you were ever meant to hold. Welcoming simplicity is opening that bag and deciding which stones to keep. This doesn't mean you need to live in an empty apartment with one chair and a single cup. Simplicity is not about deprivation. It's about alignment. It's about keeping the things, material or not, that serve your highest values, and releasing the rest. When you choose simplicity, you begin to experience a kind of freedom that has nothing to do with money. You wake up knowing your day isn't crammed with things you resent. You spend less time managing what you own and more time actually living. Nature teaches this well. A tree doesn't try to keep every leaf forever. In the right season, it lets go, not out of loss, but to make way for new growth. Your life has seasons too. Sometimes you must release so that something new can take root. Ask yourself right now, what is taking up space in my life that no longer gives me life? It might be physical clutter. It might be relationships that have drifted into one-sidedness. It might be outdated goals that no longer feel like your own. The courage is in letting them go, not with anger, not with regret, but with gratitude for the role they once played, and with trust that your life will be lighter without them. Here's the paradox. When you remove what is unnecessary, the value of what remains multiplies. A single meaningful conversation becomes more nourishing. A single well-chosen book becomes more transformative. A single quiet walk becomes more peaceful. The Stoics practiced voluntary simplicity to train their minds. They would choose to eat plain food, sleep on a harder bed, wear simple clothing, not because they had to, but to remember that comfort is not the same as happiness, and that the fewer things you depend on, the freer you are. You don't need to imitate their exact practices, but you can carry the spirit of their discipline into your own life. Maybe it means one evening a week without screens. Maybe it means keeping your wardrobe simple, so you spend less time deciding and more time doing. Maybe it means budgeting your energy like your most valuable currency. And here's something important. Welcoming simplicity doesn't just create space for what matters. It makes you more resilient. When life strips something away unexpectedly, you won't feel as lost because you've already learned to live with less. I remember a friend who lost nearly everything in a sudden downturn. It was hard, painfully hard, but he told me later that what saved him was the fact that he'd never built his identity around what he owned. He could still laugh, still connect, still dream, because his foundation was not in the more the world sells us, but in the enough he had within himself. So, as you listen to this, I invite you to imagine clearing a path through your own life. What could you remove so you can move more freely? What could you release so you can breathe more deeply? And perhaps most importantly, what could you simplify so you can live more fully? Simplicity is not a loss. It's a return to the essence of who you are without the layers the world keeps throwing on top. When you welcome simplicity as a teacher, you begin to see that the richest life is not the one with the most in it. It's the one with the most meaning in it. Choose less so you can gain more. Let go so you can hold on to what matters. And remember, simplicity isn't the absence of beauty. It's the frame that makes beauty stand out. Chapter 3. Bend without breaking, adapting gracefully to life's turns. Life rarely moves in straight lines. You plan one path, and suddenly, you're somewhere entirely different. You expect the season to be calm, and a storm arrives without warning. Sometimes, the change is welcome. Other times, it feels like the ground has shifted beneath your feet. The Stoics understood this truth deeply. They didn't expect life to obey their plans. They learned to bend, so they wouldn't break, to adapt, not as an act of surrender, but as a form of strength. Epictetus taught that we cannot control the wind, but we can adjust our sails. That single idea has carried people through centuries of uncertainty. And when I look at my own life, I see it too. The moments when I resisted change with everything I had were the moments I felt the most fragile. But the moments when I accepted reality, adjusted my stance, and moved with it were the moments I discovered my own resilience. Think of bamboo in a storm. It sways, bends, even leans low to the ground. But when the winds pass, it is still standing, while rigid branches have snapped. That's the power of flexibility. It doesn't mean weakness. It means endurance. Sometimes, bending means letting go of a plan you were certain was the one. Sometimes, it means starting over. Sometimes, it means holding on to your values, but finding a new way to live them out. I remember a time when a project I poured months into collapsed overnight. It wasn't my fault, but it didn't matter. The outcome was the same. The door was closed. At first, I fought against it in my mind. I replayed every step, searching for what I could have done differently. It was exhausting. Then one day, I realized the energy I was spending on what could have been could be used to build what comes next. That shift didn't erase the loss, but it gave me movement again. This is the heart of bending without breaking. You don't waste yourself fighting the shape of reality. You shape yourself to meet it. Now, there's an important difference here. Bending is not the same as compromising your principles. Stoicism doesn't ask you to abandon your moral compass just to survive. It asks you to keep your compass while finding a new route when the old one is blocked. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." I've always found that line almost magical because it flips the script. The obstacle isn't just something to endure. It's the material you use to create your path forward. So, how do you live this in practical terms? First, you notice when you're resisting what is. Are you spending your energy wishing things were different? Are you holding on to the image of how it should have been, instead of engaging with how it is? The sooner you see that, the sooner you can redirect your energy. Second, you focus on the small adjustments that keep you moving. When a river meets a boulder, it doesn't stop. It curves around it, sometimes slowly, sometimes forcefully, but always forward. You can do the same. Third, you learn to trust. that even if the direction changes, the journey can still be worthwhile, maybe even more worthwhile than the one you had planned. Nature reminds us of this constantly. A tree that grows in a windy place develops stronger roots. A river that twists and turns reaches places a straight one never could. The beauty often lies in the unexpected shapes. Ask yourself, right now, where am I being called to bend? Maybe it's in your work, maybe it's in a relationship, maybe it's in the expectations you've placed on yourself. Bending can be uncomfortable. It means admitting that you don't have total control. But here's the truth. That was always the case. And once you accept it, you can stop wasting energy fighting reality and start using it to move forward. One of the most powerful things you can do is reframe challenges as invitations, not punishments, not proof of failure, but invitations to adapt, to grow, to prove to yourself that you can remain whole even as the shape of your life changes. And yes, sometimes the bending will hurt. Sometimes you'll wish you could go back to how it was. But remember this, nothing truly alive stays the same forever. Growth requires change, and change requires movement. So when the next storm comes, and it will, imagine yourself like that bamboo, grounded in your roots, yet able to move with the wind. Let the storm shape you, but never uproot you. Let it test your flexibility, but never take your integrity, because in the end, the measure of your strength is not how rigid you can remain, but how gracefully you can adapt and still keep moving toward the life you choose. Bend, don't break. Adapt, don't abandon. And remember, every turn in the path can still lead you home. Chapter 4. Stand alone without feeling lonely. Becoming your own anchor. There are moments in life when you will have to stand alone, not because you want to, but because the road you're walking is yours alone to take. Friends may not understand, family may not approve, and sometimes the people you thought would stand beside you quietly step away. It's here, in these moments, that loneliness can creep in, that hollow ache of feeling unseen or unsupported. But the Stoics understood there is a difference between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness is the hunger for connection that goes unmet. Being alone can be a place of strength if you know how to anchor yourself. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by advisors, guards, and a vast empire, still wrote to himself. He carried his own counsel. He reminded himself that the approval of others is fleeting, but the approval of your own conscience lasts a lifetime. I've had seasons in my life when the crowd was loud, but my soul was quiet. Seasons where I realized that being surrounded by people doesn't mean you feel connected. And there were also seasons when I was physically alone but felt deeply grounded, because I knew who I was and what I stood for. To stand alone without feeling lonely, you must build an inner home, a place within yourself where you can rest, where you can trust your own voice, where you know that even in silence, you are not empty. This inner home is built slowly. It's built through self-reflection, through knowing your values, through keeping promises to yourself. It's built every time you choose integrity, even if no one notices. It's built every time you say no to something that violates your principles, even if it costs you approval. Think of a lighthouse. It stands on the edge of the shore, battered by storms, sometimes unseen by anyone, yet it shines. Because shining is its nature. It doesn't need applause to keep the light going. And when a ship does need it, that light becomes life-saving. You can be that lighthouse for yourself. Your light is not for constant display. It's for guiding you when the fog rolls in. Standing alone also means learning that not every disagreement is rejection, that people may walk a different path, not because yours is wrong, but because theirs is simply different. When you stop needing everyone to understand you, you free yourself from an impossible burden. The Stoics often spoke about self-sufficiency, not as isolation, but as independence of spirit. Seneca wrote, "The wise man is content with himself, not that he wishes to be without friends, but because he is able to endure being without them." So how do you build that ability? First, you spend time alone intentionally, not as punishment, but as practice. Walk without music sometimes. Sit in a cafe with no phone on the table. Spend an evening without reaching for constant conversation. You'll start to hear the sound of your own thoughts, without the static of the crowd. Second, you learn to validate yourself. When you do something good, acknowledge it internally. When you make a hard decision, trust yourself enough to know why you made it. Stop outsourcing your sense of worth to the shifting opinions of others. Third, you keep perspective. There will be people who misunderstand you, no matter how clearly you explain yourself. There will be those who judge without knowing the full story. The Stoic response is to remember that their judgment lives in their mind, not yours. Nature offers a powerful metaphor here. A mountain stands, whether anyone is looking at it or not. It doesn't crumble because no one climbs it. Its strength is not dependent on an audience. And here's the unexpected gift. When you learn to stand alone, you become a better companion to others, because you no longer approach relationships from need, but from abundance. You don't cling out of fear, you connect out of choice. I remember a period when I traveled alone for weeks at a time. At first, I felt the ache of wanting to share every sight, every moment with someone else. But somewhere along the way, that ache shifted into a kind of quiet joy. I began to notice more, the way light spilled across an empty street, the sound of my own footsteps in the early morning, the way I could choose exactly how to spend my day without compromise. That trip taught me that solitude is not the absence of connection, but the presence of self. And here's something to hold on to. Standing alone doesn't mean you'll always be alone. It means that when life places you in that space, you will not collapse. You will not lose yourself. You will know that you can weather it, because your anchor is within. So, if you find yourself in a season where you feel alone, ask, not how can I fill this space, but how can I grow here? Build the inner home. Light your lighthouse. Stand like the mountain, because the day will come when others may lean on your strength. And in that moment, you'll know you didn't just survive solitude, you transformed it into one of your greatest strengths. Chapter 5. Flow with the seasons of life. Acting in harmony with what is. Life moves in seasons. Some are warm and full of light, when everything feels easy. Some are cold and stripped bare, when everything feels harder than it should. But no matter how much we might wish it, we cannot make winter behave like summer, and we cannot make summer last forever. The Stoics understood this better than most. They saw life not as a battle to force into shape, but as a river to move with. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, taught that the wise person lives in agreement with nature, and nature is always changing. I've had times in my life when I fought the season I was in. When work slowed down, I tried to push harder until I burned out. When a relationship shifted, I clung tighter until it slipped through my fingers anyway. It's exhausting, trying to demand that the wind blow in the direction you want, instead of letting it carry you to where you need to go. Flowing with the seasons of life is not passivity. It's not sitting back and letting life just happen. It's learning to act with what is, instead of against it. Think of a skilled sailor. They don't control the wind, but they know how to set the sails, how to read the sky, how to adjust their course when the weather changes. That is harmony with life. When a season of growth arrives, you plant, you nurture, you say yes to opportunities. You use the long daylight hours to build and to create. When a season of rest arrives, you slow down, you reflect, you allow the soil of your life to recover, knowing that forcing constant harvest will leave the land barren. But here's the challenge. Our culture is built on endless summer, endless productivity, endless output. The idea that slowing down means falling behind. Yet nature doesn't grow that way. Even the strongest tree takes time to be still, to draw nourishment from the earth, to prepare for the next bloom. Ask yourself, what season am I in right now? Is this a time for planting, for building, for connecting? Or is this a time for pruning, for letting go, for restoring my energy? The answer changes everything. Because when you know your season, you stop blaming yourself for not doing what everyone else is doing. You stop forcing yourself into a rhythm that doesn't fit, and you start living in sync with your own nature. I think of the river winding its way through the land. It doesn't rush every bend. It doesn't resist every rock. Sometimes it moves quickly. Sometimes it moves slow, but always it moves forward. When you fight the season you're in, you create friction, stress, discontent. When you accept it, you create flow. Even if the season is hard, you find a rhythm within it, and that rhythm sustains you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, adapt yourself to the things among which your lot has been cast. He wasn't talking about giving up. He was talking about tuning in, like a musician adjusting to the key of the song being played, so you can still make something beautiful. There's also something freeing in knowing that seasons don't last forever. If you're in a season of struggle, it will pass. If you're in a season of abundance, it too will pass. And that truth makes both more precious. You learn to endure the hard and savor the good without clinging too tightly to either. I've noticed that when I stop trying to control the timing of everything, life opens up in ways I didn't expect. Opportunities appear in their own time. People enter or leave in ways that teach me something I needed to learn. And sometimes what I thought was a setback was actually a turning of the season, making space for something better to grow. How do you flow with the seasons of life in practice? First, pay attention. Notice your energy. Notice what's naturally opening for you and what's closing. Don't confuse a locked door for a sign you need to break it down. Second, align your actions. If the season is for growth, push yourself. If it's for rest, give yourself permission to slow. If it's for change, be willing to release. Third, trust the cycle. Even winter has a purpose. Even fall, with its falling leaves, is making way for spring. No season is wasted, unless you spend it wishing you were in another one. And here's something the Stoics would nod to. When you live in harmony with your season, you stop measuring your life against other people's timelines. You stop saying, I should be further ahead. You start saying, I am where I need to be for this part of my journey. It doesn't mean you never feel impatient. It doesn't mean you never wish for things to move faster, but you'll learn to see the beauty in the pace you're given, because each season has its own lessons. So if you're in a season of stillness right now, breathe into it. If you're in a season of change, lean into it. If you're in a season of abundance, be fully present in it, because none of it will last forever. Flow with the seasons, act in harmony with what is, and trust that the river of your life is carrying you exactly where you need to go. Chapter 6. Rehearse life's impermanence, holding things lightly, loving them deeply. One truth shapes everything we see, everything we love, everything we fear, Nothing lasts forever. Not the seasons, not the moments, not even the people we hold most dear. The Stoics did not shy away from this truth. They turned toward it. They practiced what they called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of loss. Not as a dark obsession, but as a way of remembering, to treasure what is here, right now. At first, this idea may feel heavy. Why think about losing what you love? Why imagine endings before they arrive? Because the awareness of impermanence sharpens our presence in the moment. It turns the ordinary into the precious. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." When I first read that, it didn't make me fearful. It made me pay attention. Suddenly, a simple morning coffee felt like a gift. A conversation with a friend felt like something to savor because I remembered. None of it is guaranteed tomorrow. I've had times when I forgot this, when I lived as though certain people, certain comforts, certain opportunities would always be there. And when they were gone, I realized I had taken them for granted. The Stoic practice of rehearsing impermanence is an antidote to that sleepwalking. Think of a sunset. You don't cling to the light. You simply watch it, knowing it will fade. That knowledge is what makes the colors so breathtaking. The same is true for the people and moments in your life. They are radiant because they are fleeting. Holding things lightly doesn't mean loving them less. It means loving them more honestly. It means saying, "I will not pretend you are mine forever, but while you are here, I will give you my full attention." When you embrace impermanence, you also loosen your grip on outcomes. You begin to understand that success, beauty, and even youth will shift with time. That clinging only makes the letting go harder. Seneca reminded his students that life is long enough if you live it well. But most of us waste it chasing what fades, instead of living fully in what's here. So, how do you practice this without becoming bitter or detached? First, you notice. When you're with someone you love, pause. Look at them as if it's the last time you'll see them, not with sadness, but with deep appreciation. When you walk outside, feel the air, the light, the sounds, as if this exact moment will never come again, because it won't. Second, you express. Don't save your gratitude for later. Don't save your kindness for the right time. Tell people what they mean to you. Say the words while they can still hear them. Third, you let go gracefully. When something ends, a chapter, a job, a season of life, thank it for what it gave you. You don't have to deny the grief, but you don't have to chain yourself to it either. Nature offers its wisdom here. Every autumn, leaves fall without resistance. Every spring, new buds appear without clinging to the branches of last year. Impermanence is not a flaw in life. It is the very rhythm that makes life possible. Here's something else. When you rehearse impermanence, fear loses its edge because you stop pretending loss will never happen. You meet it in your mind first, so when it comes in reality, you are not blindsided. I've had moments where this practice kept me grounded. When a close friend moved far away, I didn't feel cheated. I felt grateful for the years we had, and I could let them go with love. When a project I cared about ended, I didn't fight to keep it alive past its time. I took what it gave me and made space for the next thing to grow. Ask yourself, if I truly understood that nothing lasts forever, how would I treat this moment? Would I look up from my phone to notice the person across the table? Would I speak more gently, knowing that words can linger longer than people? Would I finally start the thing I keep putting off? Because I realize I may not always have the chance. Impermanence is not meant to steal your joy. It is meant to free you from the illusion that you have infinite chances. It is meant to invite you to live more deeply, more intentionally, now. So hold things lightly, not because they don't matter, but because they matter too much to suffocate with your grasp. And when the time comes to let go, you'll find you can do it with open hands, hands that have cherished without clinging, hands that have given without fear. Love deeply because you know it won't last forever. Let go because you know something else will come in its place, and live as if every moment is both the first and the last. Chapter 7. Let silence speak for you. Using restraint to build influence. In a world that rewards noise, silence can feel strange. We live in an age where every thought is shared instantly, where every disagreement becomes a performance, where people compete not only to be heard, but to be the loudest. The Stoics chose a different path. They knew that words have weight, and weight is lost when you scatter them carelessly. Epictetus once advised, be mostly silent, or speak only what is necessary. Not because speaking is wrong, but because silence can be more powerful than speech. I've learned that when you rush to fill every pause, you leave no space for truth to reveal itself. When you feel the urge to defend, explain, or prove yourself, silence can feel uncomfortable, even risky. But it's in that space that real influence begins to grow. Think of a calm lake. When the wind stills, its surface becomes clear, and you can see all the way to the bottom. Silence works the same way in conversation. It allows meaning to surface without the ripples of constant reaction. I remember a moment in a tense meeting years ago. Everyone was talking over each other, defending their positions. My instinct was to jump in, to make my case louder than the rest. But something in me paused. I stayed silent. I listened. And when I finally spoke, the room fell quiet. Not because my words were perfect, but because they were rare. Restraint builds value when you speak less. Your words carry more weight. People lean in because they know you don't spend your voice lightly. Silence also gives you power over your emotions. When you delay your reaction, you create space between stimulus and response. That space is where wisdom lives. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you always own the option of having no opinion. That is not weakness, that is freedom. Practicing silence doesn't mean never speaking. It means choosing when and how. It means asking yourself, does this need to be said? Does it need to be said now? Does it need to be said by me? The beauty of silence is that it often speaks without words. A calm presence in a heated moment, a pause before answering a question, a look that says more than a lecture ever could. Nature teaches us this constantly. The tallest trees do not make the most noise. The mountains stand in complete silence, yet they shape the landscape around them. Silence is not the absence of power. It is a refined form of it. Here's how you can begin to let silence work for you. First, practice the pause. When someone says something that stings, wait before responding. Let the initial rush of emotion settle. Often, the best answer is calmer and shorter than the one you were ready to give in the heat of the moment. Second, use fewer words with more precision. When you do speak, let your words be clear and intentional. Don't waste them trying to impress or dominate. Use them to illuminate, not to overwhelm. Third, listen fully. Silence isn't just the absence of speaking, it's the presence of listening. And true listening is rare. When you give it, people feel it. There's a quiet confidence that grows. When you no longer need to prove yourself in every conversation. When you trust that truth does not need constant defending. When you realize that the person who can remain calm and measured in a storm of voices will always be remembered. I've found that silence often reveals more than words ever could. It shows you who listens and who only waits to speak. It shows you the emotions others try to hide. It shows you where the real conversation is happening beneath the surface. But perhaps the most important part is this: silence keeps you from saying what you will later regret. How many times have we wished we could take back a sentence spoken in frustration? How many bridges have been burned, not by actions, but by words? A moment of silence can save years of repair. There's an ancient proverb that says, "The tree of silence bears the fruit of peace." The Stoics would agree, because in restraint, you preserve your peace, and often the peace of those around you. So, the next time you feel pressure to respond instantly, try the pause. Let the weight of your silence speak. Let your presence be felt before your words are heard. And when you do choose to speak, let your words be like arrows, few, but aimed with care. Silence is not emptiness. It is space, space for thought, space for clarity, space for the kind of wisdom that only emerges, say, when the noise fades away. Let others fight for the last word. You will keep the lasting one. Chapter 8. End the day with a compass check. Realigning before the next dawn. The day always ends faster than you expect. One moment, the sun is high, and you think you have hours left. Then suddenly, the light fades, and you're left with the quiet. The Stoics treated this moment as sacred. For them, the evening was not just the end of the day. It was a mirror, a time to look honestly at where they had walked and whether their steps had aligned with the person they wanted to be. Seneca wrote, "Each night, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said." It wasn't a ritual of guilt or perfectionism. It was a way to keep the compass of the soul pointing in the right direction. I've found that if I don't pause at the end of the day, life begins to drift. Days blur together, mistakes repeat, intentions fade. But when I take even a few quiet minutes to reflect, I find myself more grounded, more deliberate, more able to begin the next day without carrying the weight of the last. The compass check is simple. You ask yourself 3 gentle questions. First, did I live according to my values today? Did I act with honesty? Did I treat others with respect? Did I keep my word to myself and to others? This isn't about shaming yourself. It's about noticing where you stayed true and where you drifted. Second, where did I lose my footing? Was there a moment when anger spoke before I could pause? When fear kept me from acting? When distraction stole my focus from what mattered most? These are not failures. They are signals. Signals showing you where to strengthen your guard tomorrow. Third, what am I grateful for? Even the hardest days offer something to carry forward. A lesson, a kindness, a moment of beauty you almost missed. When you ask these questions regularly, you begin to see patterns. You notice the triggers that throw you off course. You notice the habits that anchor you in calm, and slowly, you correct the drift. Think of a ship at sea. If the captain never checks the compass, even a small shift in direction can take them hundreds of miles off course over time. Your days are the same. Without reflection, you can wake up years later, far from where you wanted to be. The Stoics understood that self-examination is not about self-criticism. It's about self-correction. It's about catching the drift early, before it becomes a shipwreck. I remember one period in my life when I avoided reflection because I didn't want to face my own compromises. It was easier to stay busy, to fill the evenings with noise, than to sit quietly with my own choices. But the cost was that nothing changed. I kept repeating the same mistakes because I never paused long enough to name them. When I finally began this nightly practice, I noticed something surprising. It didn't make me feel worse. It made me feel lighter, because even if the day had gone badly, I could end it with clarity, and clarity is a form of peace. Here's how to make it your own. Step 1, create a quiet space. It doesn't have to be long. 5 to 10 minutes is enough. Sit somewhere without distractions. Phone away, lights softer. Step 2, replay the day gently. Not every second, just the key moments, the choices, the reactions, the words you wish you'd said, and the ones you wish you hadn't. Step 3, write it down if you can. A sentence or two for each question. Writing makes it harder to lie to yourself and easier to see your own growth over time. Step 4, release it. Once you've looked at the day, let it go. Don't carry its weight into tomorrow. Use the insight and leave the rest behind. Nature offers a perfect image for this. Each night, the tide comes in and then goes out again. It washes the shore clean, ready for the morning. Your reflection is the same, a cleansing of the mind, a clearing of the heart. The benefit of ending the day this way is that you stop living reactively. You stop being pulled by every emotion, every impulse without awareness. Instead, you become the captain again. Each night, you reset the course, and here's the deeper gift. When you reflect daily, you live more intentionally during the day. You catch yourself in the moment, because you know, you'll be asking yourself about it later. This gentle accountability, Simons, keeps you aligned without needing anyone else to police your behavior. So tonight, before you close your eyes, ask yourself those 3 questions. Did I live my values? Where did I lose my footing? What am I grateful for? And as you drift into sleep, know this: no day is wasted if you end it with awareness. Because awareness is the first step toward a better tomorrow. Check your compass, realign, and greet the next dawn, ready to walk straighter than you did the day before. Final reflection: living as a calm force in a restless world. You've walked through these ideas step by step, guarding your attention, choosing simplicity, bending without breaking, standing alone when needed, flowing with life's seasons, embracing impermanence, letting silence speak, and ending each day with a clear compass. This is what it means to live like a Stoic in the modern world, not to escape life, but to engage with it on your own terms, to meet noise with stillness, chaos with clarity, and uncertainty with a steady heart. The truth is, the world will not slow down for you. It will keep rushing, keep demanding, keep pulling. But you can choose not to be swept away. When others chase every distraction, you can remain anchored. When others fight the tides, you can move with them. When others speak without thought, you can let your words be few and meaningful. And as you do, you become something rare. A calm force in a restless world. A person who doesn't just react, but responds. A person who knows that the real strength is not in controlling everything, but in mastering yourself. So as you step forward from here, carry this with you. You are not powerless. You can shape your days by shaping your mind. You can live with courage, without hostility, with humility, without weakness. And when the storms come, as they always do, you will know you have the strength to stand, the wisdom to bend, and the grace to keep moving forward. Because living like a Stoic isn't about being untouched by life. It's about being unshaken by it.